That's who I would like to see the Vikings target. Popular opinion would say Vikings need to get a wide receiver. Vikings need to get a wide receiver. I personally don't feel they need a wide receiver with their first pick. Second pick, third pick, fourth pick, somewhere in there, sure, grab a wide receiver. But Greg Jennings is not washed up. Charles Johnson really came out of nowhere and showed that he can play, at least to some extent, in this league last season. Jarius Wright shows plenty of moments of productivity every season when he can simply stay healthy. And then, I don't know if, we should give up on Cordero Patterson yet or not, but anyway, we're to our fourth receiver already, and you're usually not going to have more than three out there at a time for the most part anyway. I think Kyle Rudolph coming back, being on the field healthy as a receiving threat will help our passing game just as much as acquiring a new wide receiver. I really feel that Wright, Johnson, and Jennings aren't too bad if you give them a running game and some protection and a tight end. But to me, the number one objective is to give Teddy Bridgewater the necessary tools around him that he needs to continue to grow and develop and mature and be a successful franchise quarterback for this team. And in my opinion, you are more likely to accomplish that by building an offensive line that can keep him upright and give him pockets and the time to do what he needs to do, as opposed to trying to get a wide receiver for him to throw the ball to. Just my opinion. But we could also look to go defense too. I think another linebacker to go with Anthony Barr, in my opinion, preferably a true inside linebacker, a captain of the defense who can play coverage and read the offense and make the necessary adjustments pre-snap. That's the linebacker I'd like to see us get if we were to go for another linebacker somewhere. And then another safety to go back there with Harrison Smith would be beneficial as well. Blanton, Sendejo. We need more depth back there, and they're productive, they're decent, but they're not stars. So if we were to go defense, I'd say safety and linebacker are really our two primary needs. It'd also be great. We need to upgrade our nickelback on defense, but you can't draft your third cornerback on your roster with the 11th overall pick in the draft. And I've seen plenty of mock drafts already that have us taking a cornerback with the 11th pick. When we signed Captain Munnerlyn to a big free agent contract last year and drafted Xavier Rhodes in the first round a year or two ago, it makes no sense whatsoever to use the 11th pick on your third on the depth chart cornerback. Makes no sense. So don't buy into that for a second. If we go defense first round, it'll be safety or linebacker. But definitely look for the Vikings to go offense, either offensive lineman, which is what I'm pulling for, or wide receiver. Now, there is a remote possibility that the Vikings could look to go running back with that 11th overall pick. There are apparently two elite level, or at least, allegedly elite level running backs in this upcoming draft. I couldn't tell you their names at the moment, but I will at some point in the future. So depending on how the thing with AP plays out, and if in fact he simply won't be a Viking no matter what next year, whether it be by his doing or the leagues or both or whatever, if we're forced to have to move on, we might look for a running back with that first round pick if we really truly feel that one of those two guys is that elite and immediate of an impact player. However, it would make much more sense for us to look for a running back in the middle rounds of the draft, where most running backs are drafted these days, and there's way more depth, and the ability to find and acquire a productive starting running back seems a lot easier than most other positions. But it is still a possibility, depending on how things play out with AP. But that's all we got for Vikings talk right now. So let's finish the meat of the show with our final Minnesota sports team that we're going to talk about tonight, the Minnesota Wild. That's right, I'm making hockey a bigger part of the show. I actually watched the Ducks versus the Red Wings a couple nights ago, go into overtime in a shootout, and man, what a great hockey game. There's a lot of great hockey being played in the NHL this year and right now, and the playoff races are getting hot right now. Should be good from here on out for the whole rest of the season if you're a hockey fan. Now, how the Wild play into this is they're all of a sudden the best team in hockey as of the All-Star break. As far as all teams go after the All-Star break, the Minnesota Wild have the best record in the entire NHL. Prior to the All-Star break, they were not a top 8 team in the Western Conference. But as of today, they are in the 8th seed for the Western Conference. So this recent win streak has been huge and propelled a team that wasn't in the playoffs to a team that is now looking to possibly be in the playoffs. A lot of games left to be played. Time will tell. But the signs so far point to that they should be able to keep this up. One of those reasons being Zach Parise is just a phenomenal player and has been having another great season, and there's no reason to believe that he should hit any sort of wall or slow down anytime soon. The other primary reason would be the goalie, Dobby, as they're calling him. Now, this guy wasn't a goalie for the team at the beginning of the season, but we acquired him via trade, I believe, a couple weeks before the All-Star break. Somebody check on that and get back to me, let me know. But anyway, we traded for this Dobby at goalie, and since we've had him, we've been almost unbeatable. So, I apologize to all you Minnesota Wild fans who are listening, because I assumed that it was me taking this interest in our newly found awesome, successful team that jinxed us the other night when we lost at home to one of the worst teams in the league, the Oilers. I actually sat down and watched this game, and it was frustrating and confusing, but it at times looked like the win streak post-All-Star break was just catching up with the team fatigue-wise, was what it looked to me throughout a lot of that game against the Oilers the other night that we lost 2-1. Now, normally I wouldn't overreact to one loss from any team in any sport, and I don't feel I'm overreacting, but just a thought in regards to the Wild losing that home game the other night to the Oilers. The Oilers are a terrible team. You have to understand this. The Oilers stink. One of the worst in the league. And it was in Minnesota. So the Wild lost on their home ice. Now, the reason that it's so bad is the Wild's next game, which is tomorrow night, by the way, is on the road against the Nashville Predators. They are a Western Conference team who, by the way, happens to be the best team in all of hockey. And I don't believe that the Wild's schedule gets much easier anytime soon. I believe they have a bunch of hard Western Conference road games coming up here. So that is the main reason that this home loss to what should be an inferior team is really more concerning than it would normally be under normal circumstances. And also, anytime you have a team in any sport that struggles for a while, and then all of a sudden they get hot. They get on a streak and they get hot. That happens to really good teams. And it also happens to teams that aren't good teams. Now, a lot of times you can tell the difference between the two based off of how they fare against the bad teams, not the better teams, the bad teams. When a team is truly a really good team, an upper echelon, a top team, very seldom do they play down to their competition. They will almost always beat the teams that are beneath them. They will lose against other good teams when those other good teams bring their best. That tends to be when the good teams lose. Now, I'm in no way saying that the Minnesota Wild are a fraud or anything like that. I'm simply saying that it's not a good sign if you're a good team to be losing at home to inferior teams. Generally, that suggests that you were overachieving for a while and now your true colors are starting to shine through a little more. I don't know. I hope that's wrong. I hope it was just one game where fatigue was setting in, as I said to start the segment about the Wild. But only time will tell. All I know is I'm interested, and I haven't been interested in Minnesota hockey in quite a while. So that's great. Hopefully you're interested in it too. But if you like me talking hockey, let me know. And if you want me to never talk hockey again, let me know. You can find the show on Facebook, Balls Deep Sports Talk, or Scotty Ball. That's me. You can also follow the show on Twitter at BDST Show. And that is definitely the best way to interact with me during the show in real time. Text me, your questions and comments and feedback and suggestions on the Twitter, and I will get back to you right away. And again, you do that at BDST Show on Twitter. Just a reminder, you are listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk with your host Scotty Ball here on Northern Lights Radio, WNLMradio.com. All right, we got just a little under 20 minutes of show time left here tonight. Hope you're enjoying it so far, and I hope you can hear everything so far. Again, the audio issues of last week should be a thing of the past, which makes me very happy. But now that we've wrapped up the meat, that was the last section of the show, by the way, the meat, we are going to go to the next section of the show, which I am calling simply Balls Quickies. Basically, in Balls Quickies, I will try to touch on everything else relevant in the sports world somewhat that we haven't had time to talk about yet in the show thus far. So, let's bring it back to football. Again, the Combine and NFL Draft was this last weekend. Not a whole lot of answers or moving up and downs, big names, little names, stuff like that. You can look at all the numbers online if you want. The real talk yet out of the draft is Mariota versus Winston. Who's the number one quarterback? Who's the number one pick? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers currently hold the number one pick, and barring some act of Al Davis-like insanity on their behalf, they will pick either Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston to be their next franchise quarterback. Now, to me, Jameis Winston is by far the more ready and safer bet to be a successful pro quarterback. I have nothing against Mr. Mariota. He's got some good skills. He's had great success. The season he had last year was one of the best seasons that a college quarterback has ever had throwing the football. However, his athleticism and his skill set and his experience running offenses and going up against defenses does not translate well at all into going to the NFL. Now, that's not to say he can't learn it and be successful, but I think he's definitely going to have a much bigger learning curve and a slower maturation process on the NFL level than one Jameis Winston, who comes from the SEC Conference, which is, let's face it, the SEC Conference is the unofficial D-League of the NFL. And that is where Jameis Winston learned how to run an offense, learned how to win under pressure, learned how to be a champion, learned how to read pro-style defenses. He's got the athleticism and the size and all the skills that you're looking for in a quarterback. Winston is a 99% hit. The 1% that you fear with Jameis Winston is the character issues. This guy has had some issues in the past, not being able to stay out of trouble, not always knowing what the right thing is, not always being able to do the right thing in social situations and other. But if you can get this guy focused, committed to football, he's without question, to me, in my opinion, a better NFL quarterback than Marcus Mariota, at least now for these first couple seasons. It's not to say Mariota can't develop into a great all-time quarterback, but these first couple seasons, Winston is the guy that's much more ready to be successful right now and has the higher ceiling moving forward in the future. But it'll be interesting to see what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do. I also think it's interesting that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously from the state of Florida, and Jameis Winston played his football at Florida State University. Just seems like a no-brainer to me, but we'll see what happens. Also, the Cleveland Browns are in the news a little bit. They revealed the change to their logo